a Nobody's Project production.
Hannah Arendt once said, and excuse me if I butcher the quote, but it's, education is the point in life where we decide if we love the world enough to take responsibility for it.
Hannah Arendt was born into a German Jewish family in 1906 and showed academic potential through her early years of education. With the rise of the Nazis, she was forced to leave Germany and eventually settle in Paris for 6 more years, before being forced again to flee to the United States of America in 1941. Hannah Arendt is one of the leading political thinkers of the 20th century, profoundly shaping our modern understanding of totalitarianism, power, and the ethics in the wake of the Holocaust. Where Hannah Arendt sinks with the Too Many Arseholes social project is where she prefers to not describe the perpetrators of modern systematic evil, such as those in Nazi Germany, as psychopaths or sociopaths. In fact, she argues against this interpretation. Quite often they can be ordinary bureaucrats. She described Adolf Eichmann and others like him as terrifyingly normal or dull, rather than clinically insane or psychopathic. Arendt argued that these individuals were dangerous because they failed to think, lacked imagination, and obeyed orders without considering the moral consequences of their actions, rather than because they were actively malicious or incapable of feeling. Maybe they don't have the hardware to run the socio-emotional software. In 1963, we had no knowledge of von Economo neurons nor mirror neurons. Our clinical understanding of psychopaths was very primitive compared to our understanding of pathological people today. This interpretation of Arendt's thoughts actually aligns with the TMA project a little more than we initially realised. Referencing monsters as psychopaths and sociopaths is consistent with mid-20th century psychology, but that hasn't aged well, and the latest neuroscience is aiding our new understanding that the psycho-sociopathic spectrum is largely filled with the terrifyingly normal or dull, and those that fail to think, lacked imagination, and obeyed orders without considering the moral consequences of their actions. A quite accurate modern-day interpretation of people on the psycho-sociopathic spectrum, the antisocial behavioural disorder spectrum, if that's a thing. Too Many Arseholes is a social project looking at the rise of pathological behaviours in our society and the erosion of social trust, creating a better conversation around why this is, and finding a way forward to a greater humanity. Thanks for joining us today for Season 1, Episode 14. Today we bring you the second half of our conversation with the host of the podcast Our Fake History, Sebastian Major. Today we go a little deeper on how new media has always been a fertile ground for hoaxes, hucksters, and pathological people, the impacts of releasing new technology without restraint, and how AI has pulled the rug out from education across the board and potentially humanity. And finally, we throw our hats in the ring on the future of artists and art in an AI world. And so thanks for joining in our conversation with Sebastian as we attempt to unpack and better understand why there's just too many arseholes. That's a balance in the 21st century that we're all coming used to, as every society did,
Sure.
As they get new technology. We just have to look back at the 15th century with the printing press, and that was huge social impact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that I've sort of I've been thinking a lot about because I've been focusing for an upcoming project on specifically on like frauds and hoaxes and like that sort of side of what I look at on my show, and there seems to be a sort of a connection between like a moment of a new media sort of explosion and frauds, hucksters, liars, con men sort of flooding the scene, right? So yeah, the printing press is a great example. England in the early 1700s, when they have their own sort of like a new printing sort of revolution happens. There's sort of like a magazine revolution that sort of happens in England, and then you get this sort of wave of hoaxes and lies and con men. And then, again, the sort of late 19th century goes hand in hand with this whole other eruption in new technologies, but also sort of yet a new revolution in American media that comes with this whole wave of lies and hoaxes and con men. And then I think we're very much living in one of those eras right now. And maybe we have been living in it, for, the last 20 years, and we're just sort of catching up to it in a lot of ways. But, I can sort of see how, especially a information technology, leap forward, always and historically has always sort of put us into this uneasy territory that creates fertile grounds for con men and for liars and for hoaxers and for misinformation. And it's not a new thing, but it's not something that happens always. It's something that tends to like happen especially during like these moments of information technology booms, if you will,
But then when you look back, it is a phenomenon, a human phenomenon that we create this new technology, this new way of communicating or sharing knowledge. And then it usually gets jumped on by all, as you said, the hucksters and all the people who wanted to take advantage of it. And I think, there's some interesting stories. We invented photography 150 years ago.
Right, of course, yeah.
And a lot of the earliest photography was adult photography. And so we tend to lean into these new technologies, new things with our more debased instincts, which is an interesting phenomenon. Whereas, I often say to my kids, wouldn't it have been great if they showed us the internet and they told us, this is what can come, this is what we can do, and then when we learn how to use it before we use it, rather than just press go and off it goes. And
let's see how this goes. Yeah.
And in the education system, they did that with ChatGPT. They didn't ask permission. They didn't ask anyone permission. Do you want AI? Do you want your students to have access to AI? And then bang.
Yeah. Well, and I think just educators are are reeling still, and are still trying to keep up. But it is the greatest challenge for educators globally. How do what are we even teaching anymore? Right. We haven't figured it out yet. Right. We're just like, I do not have that answer, but I know that if I was still in the classroom actively, that would be something I'd be wrangling with every single day.
It's not being in that environment myself, but having family who do teach. You hear stories of teaching used to be acquiring of knowledge, and then the internet came along, and then teaching was you can acquire it at any time, but you need to be able to interpret and understand it and use it. And then AI comes along. It's like you can acquire it when you want, you can apply it however you want, but you've just got to need to know now how to prompt it. And so you're now allegedly teaching the next generation, which is only one generation from the last one generation from the four, a completely different type of learning, because the information is now a completely different format and accessible and understandable in a different way. So it's that generation.
Yeah, but you know what? And this is where, my grumpy old man comes in, is that we have to resist that impulse to be like, now we're just teaching kids how to prompt the machine. That should not be what we're doing at all. And we should be like, educators globally should be pushing against it. I know that is the feeling of like, no, if this machine can do it, like, because honestly, we are then prompting ourselves out of existence. And so we must rage against that instinct, right? It's like, there's like, we've managed not to drop any more nuclear weapons since World War II. We've restrained ourselves in that regard, amazingly. We need to actually have that same restraint when it comes to AI. Maybe I'm being too apocalyptic there, but I really think we've got to resist that sort of branch right now in the idea of education, or what education is, right? Because otherwise we're lost, you know.
I think you brought a really good point up there. We have survived the last 60 odd years or 80 odd years without dropping a nuclear bomb, and I think without putting words in people's mouths, it has been that underlining sense of humanity that this is extremely catastrophic, and if that idea of bringing humanity back into things is a theme of our project. We've got an episode coming up on religion, where we look at religion and humanity, and it's one of my favourites that we're looking forward to. And also with technology, where's that human aspect? Part of this theme is to always try to bring back the humanity into everything, and then we don't want to change the world, but when we see these ideas of technology, of social media, really draw the human out of it, then that's when it starts to shake, because we are only human, and everything we have is because humans have created it all. And when we start taking the humans or humanity out of it, it starts to fall apart.
I would love a sort of a robot utopia, where all sort of, wealth is generated by these machines that can do everything. And then human beings are free to just pursue passion, right? But that requires a completely reordering of society. And what I worry is that we are sort of trending towards this spot where we'll have robot feudalism, right? Where there will be a handful of robot lords who will control the AI systems, who will control the machines that can now do all the work. Yeah, well, I just hope that the thing is, we could. It need not be a disaster, but it requires us to think about how what will be generated by these machines can be properly distributed for the betterment of humanity, right? And that requires a serious amount of will, but that needs to be the focus. Obviously, I'm with you that humanity always has to be the focus, and the betterment of people has to be the focus.
I think the AI and this automated future is an exciting future to have. I think where AI needs to move, and I don't have a huge professional opinion on it, but it's been very successful at bringing up a lot of people with less capability. So I see a lot of people who barely use computers now can use AI reasonably well, and can bring them up to a mid-level operator, and I think that's a great advantage. But I think where a lot of the AI futurists are sort of leading us astray is I think they can create a sentient being. I look at them going, you're miles away. We're decades away from that, because to be sentient, you need to be human being. Like we are uniquely sentient in the way that we have a body, and we engage with other people, and we have an environment. All these attributes just will never exist in AI, because it's a digital entity. And so rather than promising creating a better person than us and a godlike capability, why don't we just focus on what it actually does well, which is all those little jobs. There's an AI that can help us do this. There's an AI that's been trained on that. And I think there's a lot of possibility in that. It really does even the playing field and help us all be more equal in the way we can do things.
Yeah, no. I'm all for AI, being our butlers, but I really don't want AI to be our artists, right? And it's the part of it. One of the many parts of it that worries me is like we're going to do the writing for you. Hell, we'll do the thinking for you. We'll do the animation for you. And it's like no. Those are the things that allow that to remain the the province of human beings, right? AI can get better at doing our dishes. AI can get better at like, those sort of small mechanical, the truly mundane stuff. Yeah, but leave the creativity to human beings, because that can be what our role is in the future, right? Which is the best part of being human, I would say, is the being a creator, right? Being a person with an imagination, being someone that can think, someone that can communicate, someone that can connect. Let us keep that. Don't try and hone in on that, because if that gets taken away, then we are really in an existential crisis of what does it mean to be a person if the machine is doing all the stuff that is the most fulfilling work for a human being.
One of the things I'm hoping for is with this evolution of AI and this influence in the creative space, humans will leapfrog that. If everyone's writing our pop songs and everyone's writing our pop movies and all our general stuff, there will be a space created where humans go, I need to express myself differently. What will be very interesting to watch is to see how humans leapfrog this AI creative glut that's now saturating us. And we see a whole new evolution of creativity and self-expression in a way that we haven't even thought of yet. And like rock and roll in the 60s, punk in the 70s. These were ways of creative where, the original music form got completely commercialized, and then there was an antisocial break-off in the music industry. And I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing that. Don't know where it is, don't know what happened, but being humanity, I have faith that humanity will find a way to be even more creative once this creative glut is filled up.
I appreciate that optimism. I needed a little bit of that optimism. I like it. I feel it's because it's summer for you right now in Australia, and I'm like in the depths of winter here. But you know what? Actually, I did see someone that I really respect, write on some social media platform that the only people that really need to worry about AI aren't artists, but are content creators. And that I thought about that because, I as a podcaster, right? Like, a lot of times I'm referred to just as a content creator, but it's like, oh yeah, no, if you get yourself in the content creator mindset, then you are setting yourself up to be replaced by a machine that has proved itself very good at producing content, But if you are truly an artist, a creator, and again, like I know it sounds pretentious to call yourself an artist and what you're doing is making podcasts or whatever. I only say that people should sort of reach for that because that is what makes you irreplaceable, and so, I'm ready to ride your wave of optimism there. I'm ready for it today.
I believe in humanity. I think that, if you look through history, which is, our your speciality and my interest, we've always prevailed. But yeah, no, I do constantly want to reiterate that I think we underestimate humans and we underestimate humanity. All the way to the back, and one of the subjects we bring up briefly in an upcoming podcast is, pyramids, ancient mega structures. Everyone loves the alternative theories that humans built them. Give us the credit. Give us the credit. They did it. We don't know how they did it. They did it in ways that we can't conceive in this century, but they're there. They've been there for 5,000 years or more.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you there. And I actually do share your belief in humanity to an extent, because I do think that there's something worth fighting for here, and I believe that those things are the better aspects of the human experience. I had a really inspiring high school history teacher. One of the people that kind of perhaps set me on the path that I'm still walking today is a guy named Atul Ball, in case he's still listening out there somewhere. And just like a really intelligent, really kind of hip, very kind of forward-thinking dude teaching history in suburban Toronto. But he would start his grade 12 history classes with this amazing quote from Hannah Arendt, the great philosopher, right? And Hannah Arendt once said, and excuse me if I butcher the quote, but it's, education is the point in life where we decide if we love the world enough to take responsibility for it. And I have been guided by that sentiment ever since, right? And as a teacher, I was guided by it. And as a podcaster and what I do with Our Fake History, I'm still kind of guided by it, which is if you want people to save the world or push for a better future, perhaps that's a less grandiose way of putting it, just push for a better future, you have to show them what is worth loving in the first place. And education is that. Education is that point in life where we decide whether or not we love the world. So you got to, as a teacher, you've got to show people what's worth loving, while also being honest about the darkness in our history. But I try and do that always. That there's something exciting about human beings. There's something I've. When I'm discovering things for the podcast, I always get excited when I find someone in history where I'm like, oh, I feel like I know this person, when they feel real. And that's always what excites me. And I'm always excited to share that on my show, because it's this is where we learn to love our species,
Exactly right.
Or at least our species' weird story, that is history.
I love that quote. I think that it's such an important thing that we lean into here on Tuning Our Souls, is that maturing of young people to adulthood. Just hearing those sort of inspirational stories of how your teachers have inspired you, that's rich. That's that richness of getting the younger generations to engage, to connect, to feel a part of something, and then want to contribute and move us forward. And with young children like yourself, I'm watching them grow up, and I'm watching them get to that cusp, and to just be able to say the right words, to be able to give them that inspiration is something that obviously you got as a student, and I got as a student. I've got a couple of teachers and a couple of mentors that really sort of picked up and drove me forward, and here I am now tackling the subject of society, humanity, psychopaths, and where we're at and where we go forward, and it's probably a tough subject, but it's one that's worth leaning into. I think it's certainly.
Yeah, man. I salute you for grappling with it, man. We got it.
Well, someone has to, and I think in my opening episode, there's so many times that you go to talk about a situation or a person, whether they be in your community or in the news, and everyone just swears and just says, "Oh, they're a ... and it's like, well,
yeah. Right.
I want to keep talking about that. I don't want to put a curse word in there and kill the conversation. And so we go into the history, the neuroscience, the psychology, psychiatry of it all. And really there is some amazing science that's coming out now around, one of the stories we'll pick up in the future is Bruce Willis.
Oh, right.
Because he's got behavioural variant frontotemporal dementia, which is all these von Economy neurons in his frontal lobe. All the proteins grow up around these neurons and dementia, and you're a normal person, but you lose your social and emotional connection to your decision-making and your behaviours.
Right.
And so that scientific understanding now draws a strong link between someone's ability to be humane and empathetic and socially aware or not. And so we're really sort of leaning into that a bit to say, well, okay, we've got some big challenges at the moment. We've always had these challenges, but now we've got some new science that can really help us understand that, but it's new science, 10 years away, 15 years away from solidifying it. But, I'd like to ask a question maybe in season 2. If I was an insurance company insuring large corporates and I could scientifically prove that pathological people in those environments are a huge risk to their business, then I want to insure against that.
Sure. Interesting. That's an interesting take on that, eh? Yeah.
So it's applying this new science. And in episode 10, we put the question of, we've become powerful before we've become wise.
Oh, yeah.
And we're asking the question of what does this wisdom look like? And we're proposing that maybe this new science around how we can identify and manage these pathological traits, is this individualism away from community mindedness, maybe some new knowledge. Don't know how to apply it. We need to bring in all the intelligent people. But there's some patterns over the last 10, 15, 20 years of science that we're leaning into. We're asking the questions, and hopefully we can improve the discourse away from, as we say, swearing and throwing our hands in the air and going, I don't know, maybe there is some science and some discourse in there.
No, I appreciate that.
Help us find a way forward.
I appreciate that, because it does sort of it encourages us to sort of just actively seek a solution. Because when you just sort of you're right. When you just sort of stake your flag that, like, oh, this person's crazy, then that also just asks the person on the other side to become a reactionary,
Well, that's right. And you lose the empathy. You start doing what they do. You other them,
Right.
And there's a couple of other psychologists we lean into. They say that, psychopathy and sociopathy is a skill set that humanity requires. Let's just not put them in charge of a big business or in charge of a company or a country.
Sure. Fair enough.
Probably worth wrapping it up at that point there, Sebastian. And just thank you so much for your time and your support and being available. And we're 10 years behind you in your journey. I hope we can replicate your kind of journey in the next 10 years. It will be if it's not a passion project, then it's a challenge.
Yeah, but you got to throw it out there, because you never know, right? Like, even when I started 10 years ago in 2015, people were like, "Oh, aren't you kind of late to the game?" And so you got to do it, right? Because you never know if what idea will catch fire. So
you just don't know.
Try.
But thank you so much. I'll let you go.
Well, no, my pleasure. My pleasure to be here. Thanks so much. It was an interesting conversation. Hopefully I did not ramble too much. But
not only you've got a great podcast, but you've got a fantastic, deep, rich understanding of our history, and more importantly, where it's fake and correcting that.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I do really care about what I put out there, and so it's always nice when thoughtful people like yourself are into it and like what I'm doing. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thanks. It definitely adds to the discourse, and it certainly adds to a better understanding of our past, because although they say our past was written by the victors often usually make it really, really, really pro them. It's not that honest. So
yeah. No, it is certainly, the journey of making the podcast has certainly sort of deepened my own understanding, not only of our past, but just of humanity. And so, I encourage anyone out there, if they're interested in just all the ideas that you're sort of kind of clamoring with in your project here, go deep on the human story, go deep on human history, start absolutely anywhere. And, I think it does actually increase your empathy if you're doing it right anyway.
But on that note, thank you very much. We'll wrap it up there, and listen, stay warm where you are. And, obviously you've got another big year ahead, and just we wish you all the best for, obviously the future, and we'll keep in touch. And, love to maybe one day see you at one of these podcast conventions if we get that successful and that popular, and, we can share a beer.
I'd love that. Thanks for waking up super early in Australia. I appreciate that. And, God, it's been years since I found myself in the Southern Hemisphere, but hopefully I get back to your part of the world.
Thanks, Sebastian.
All right. My pleasure.
Thanks again for taking the time to listen to our conversation with Sebastian over the last 2 episodes. We will hope to check in again with Sebastian in the future and get his take on our chaotic human force idea. You could also do a lot worse than spend some time reading Hannah Arendt's work. It does age well and is poignant for our current times. We do highly recommend Our Fake History as a fun and intelligent, family-friendly look at our histories and explore what is real and what is myth. The link is in our show notes, and if you can support Sebastian and the other middle-class podcasters, now is a good time to get behind him. To support this project, you can go to our Patreon page where you can get more information on the project and support us. You can always join our Patreon group and get early and ad-free episodes as well as other benefits. You can also like, subscribe and review the podcast to help spread the conversation. And the best way to support us is to share the podcast with your family, friends, and colleagues so you can have a better conversation with them. As always, we'll ask you to give a shit about our planet and just please, don't be an arsehole. But this week, we'll end the episode with the full quote from Hannah Arendt. Education is the point at which we decide whether we love the world enough to assume responsibility for it, and by the same token save it from that ruin which, except for renewal, except for the coming of the new and the young, would be inevitable. And education, too, is where we decide whether we love our children enough to expel them from our world and leave them to their own devices, nor to strike from their hands their chance of undertaking something new, something unforeseen by us, but to prepare them in advance for the tasks of renewing a common world.